The next topic that we are going to study is manuring. Let me write down. Manuring. What is manuring? You know, after the soil has been plowed, it has been prepared, the next step is manuring. The process of adding this nutrient for the growth of plant is called manuring. Okay, so and how come we give this nutrients to our plants? In the form of manure and fertilizers. Okay, so what is manure? Manure is a, let me write down, manuring provides nutrients to plants in the form of manure and fertilizers. Now, manure is a fertilizer, but manure is a natural fertilizer. Fertilizers come under the category of chemically or human-made fertilizers. So, manure are natural fertilizers and fertilizers comes under the category of chemical fertilizers. Now, manure is a natural substance and it is made by the decomposition of cattle dung, human waste and plant residue. All these biodegradable waste is collected in a pit in an open area and it is left to decompose. After it decomposes, the matter that is obtained there, it is collected and it is very rich in nutrient and it is used as a manure. That's why it also called the manure as natural fertilizers. You know, not only this type of method is used to make manures, we can use compositing. What is compositing? You know, this open pit where this manure was made, you can cover this manure, add some water to it and leave it for 7 to 8 days. Then a manure is created. Or you can use vermicomposting. What is vermicomposting? This animals, you know, so small worms are used and you can use these worms to make this manure. If you are residing in an area where this nurseries are there and the manufacturing of manure is there, you can go and visit them. I can give you one example. If some of you are residing in Jaipur, you can visit this Jhalana forest area and they have a vermicomposting area there. You can see that how these worms are used to make this manure. Okay, now fertilizers. What are fertilizers? Fertilizers are also like manures, but they are produced on a large scale. You know, nowadays because of very much increase in our population, it is not suitable to produce manure. So, fertilizers or chemically made fertilizers are there which are produced on a large scale for our crops. Okay, these artificial fertilizers helps to compensate the nutrient deficiency which is availed in the soils so that our plants are grown in efficient or in a rich quantity. Now, these fertilizers which are grown chemically or which are made chemically are nutrient specific. Like one type of fertilizer can be rich in particular type of nutrient, another can be rich in another type of nutrient. So, they are very nutrient specific and you know different types of plants require different types of nutrients. Particularly plants or crops require nitrates and phosphates for their proper growth. So, these two types of nutrients are required by our plants, that is nitrates and phosphates. You know, some common fertilizers are urea, potash, super potash, phosphate, ammonium phosphate and NPK. What is NPK? Nitrate, phosphorus, potassium. Okay. So, a this fertilizers is also used. Now, you know, these fertilizers are good for our plants. Okay, you were considering this fertilizers are good for plants because they provide nutrients, but not. They are not good for plants because as the time increases, or as the time went on for a long period of time, this fertilizers may damage our health, and also the soil is made, you know, our environment get destroyed very easily by the use of fertilizers. And you know, when rain comes, this fertilizers get washed away and they come to water resources, and this water resources get polluted, and this water resources, when they get polluted, we drink this water and then we will get this pollutants in our body and we will get ill. So the use of fertilizers should be done judiciously. That is, we should know how much amount of fertilizers should be used. Now, as you can see in your book, there is a difference between manure and fertilizers are given. Please students, go through it, and we have discussed all about this in our session today. Now, there is activities also given, activity 1.1. Please, I'm giving you this as an homework. Please try to do this activity at your homes. It's a very simple activities. You can take in help of your parents. Okay, that will be all for today's class. Now we will start with our next topic. Hello students, the next heading that we are going to study is other methods of soil enrichment. Let me write down the heading. Other method of soil enrichment. Other method of soil enrichment. Now, you know this, the used up soil which is used for growing crops, it is depleted in the nutrients that are necessary. One of the method for providing this or for replenishing the nutrients is crop rotation. That is, different types of crops can be grown on the same piece of land on alternative years or alternative seasons also. Another method of enriching the soil is green manuring. Let me write down what it is. Green manuring. Now, green manuring. You know, when the plowing is done, what happens? The farmers used to bury these green plants into the soil. Mostly legumes, bushes, leaves and small plants are buried and left to decompose so that the field gets this nutrients in it. What are legumes? You have studied about leguminous plants in our earlier classes, and this leguminous plants has a symbiotic relation with nitrogen fixing bacteria. So they have very high amount of nitrates in it. So the soil get enriched with nitrates. So that's how we can also make our soil enrich. You know, crops such as rice, maize, sugarcane, wheat, cotton require more nutrients. So these before growing this type of crops, this green manuring can be done. They can be grown on the green manured fields. So this was the heading, other methods of soil enrichment. Now, the next heading that we are going to study is sowing. Okay, let me write down the heading, sowing. What are sowing? When the seed are buried or at a proper depth in the soil is called sowing. Okay, the process of placing the seed at a proper depth in the soil is called sowing. The heading is sowing. Okay, the process of placing the seed at the proper depth is called sowing. Okay, now The seeds which are used during sowing should have some characteristics to it. Seeds should be first. They should be healthy, clean and fertile. That is, they can be grown into a plant or a crop. Okay. High yielding capacity or variety. That is, it should provide with high yield of a crop. And the last is disease free. The seed should be disease free. This should be the characteristic of a seed which is used for sowing. Okay. So, good quality seeds should be used that are healthy, clean and fertile, which give high yielding variety and are disease free. Okay. Now the sowing is done. Now, how sowing is done or what is sowing? You know, when the plot or the prepared soil after manuring, like if you have a soil, if you have a land or a field where you have to plant a crop, it is plowed, then it is manured. Now it comes under the category of sowing. So first, how the sowing is done, you know, in moist and appropriate depth in the soil, not too deep, not too shallow is done. Now adequate spacing should be there, like this is seed, this is seed, this is seed, this is seed. We should not, like, this is not the method of sowing. Seed should be grown at a proper depth and at proper or you can say adequate spaces, so that when this seed forms into a seedling and the roots are formed, these roots do not intersect or fight each other. Now these roots of these seeds will fight with each other similarly, so that's why adequate space between the seeds should be there, and the sowing area should be moist and the depth should be proper, not so deep, not too shallow. Now, you know, this sowing is done by hands also and by machines also. If we do this sowing by hand, as you can see the image given in your books, the seeds are thrown by hands. This is called broadcasting. When the sowing is done by scattering the seeds with the help of hands into the soil is called broadcastings. Or you can also use machines. The machine's name is seed drills. See, these seed drills are used for sowing seeds at a right distance for growing the plants. The traditional seed drills consist of a funnel-shaped container where the seed passes and are placed into the soil. This helps in the uniform sowing of seeds. You know, some of the plants like paddy, tomatoes and chili are first sown in nurseries, and when the saplings or plantlets are formed, then they are shifted to open spaces and they are planted at a proper adequate spaces between them into the large field for growing further, okay, for their further growth and development. This process is called transplantation. Okay. Now, you have given me an activity regarding to know how the defective seed cannot germinate. Please perform this activity at your homes. Now, the next heading that we are going to study is irrigation. That is irrigation. What is irrigation? After the seed are sowed, it requires water. So the method of providing water is called irrigation to these plants for or crops. So the heading is irrigation. Irrigation rains. If there is proper rain is there in an area, then we do not have to provide with the method of irrigation or with the method of watering the crops. But if suppose the rain is delayed or there is no rain, then method of watering should be adopted, because certain plants or certain crops require water at a particular time so that it do not get wilted or it do not get damaged. So this method of irrigation is very much important for the growth and development of our crops. Okay, so this is irrigation. There are traditional method of irrigation are also there and modern method of irrigations are also there. Now, we will discuss first about the traditional methods, then we will discuss about the modern methods. So, traditional methods. You know what are traditional methods? Pulley system. Traditionally we call as moat. As you can see in your books, an image of moat is given. What is moat? Moat is a pulley system in which water is pulled from a water resource. It can be a well or any other such resource, and then this water is used to irrigate the fields. Now, this moat system is very time consuming and very much labor intensive system. We require very much amount of labor to it, but it is very cost efficient. Okay, this is moat. The next is Dekli. Let me write down the word Dekli. See in your books, the image of Dekli is given. Now, what is Dekli? We used to draw water from a well or a similar resource. We tie a rope or a bucket to a pole, and then the other end, we tie a very heavy stick to it and any other object of a counterbalance. Now, like it's a seesaw style, okay? Now, this pole is used to drop water and used to irrigate our fields. Okay, now the next system is, or the next traditional method is chain pump. What is chain pump? Chain pump. Now, chain pump, it consists of two large wheels and it is connected by a chain. The buckets which are attached to a chain. One part of the chain dips into the water resource. As the wheel turns, this bucket picks up the water, the chain later lifts this water resource to the upper wheel, and then this upper wheel transfers this water to an area where water is get deposited into a source, and the empty bucket gets carried back down. So this type of method is a chain pump method, and this water which is collected can be used for irrigation purposes. Next is Rahat. Okay, this Rahat is also called river system. Okay, Rahat or river system. Okay. Now, what is Rahat? In Rahat, there is a big amount of wheel is there, and on this wheel, various containers are there, and a pole is connected, and at the corner of the pole, a bull, or you can use a machine also, is there, and this bull or this ox, as it moves, it collects water from a water resource, and a parapet is made, and this water which is come from this water resources is collected there and can be used for various purposes. Okay. So this was all the traditional methods: moat, Dekli, chain pump and Rahat. Now we will study about some modern methods of irrigation. Let me write down the heading first: modern methods of irrigation. Modern methods consist of sprinkler systems and drip irrigation. Okay, let me write down the heading: modern methods. Modern methods. So the modern methods consist of sprinkler system and drip irrigation. First we will discuss about sprinkler system. Sprinkler system. What is sprinkler system? It's like fawara style, okay? Fountain style you can say, or whatever you want to say. Now, what happens in sprinkler system? The soil, which is sandy in nature, it is good for that type of system, soil. What are sandy soils? Sandy soils cannot retain water in it. So sprinkler systems are used for sandy soils. There's a nozzle attached to it, and this nozzle keeps on rotating, and the water keeps on throwing overall a field, and the field gets irrigated. Okay. So these sprinkler systems are used in sandy soils so that the water can be retained for a longer period of time. Next modern method that we are going to discuss is drip irrigation. You know, you have learned about it. Drip means boon types. Okay. So when the water just falls in drops from a pipe just near the roots of a plant. Okay, this what happens in drip irrigation. Suppose this is a plant. Okay, and this is roots. So water only gets dropped only nearby its roots only, and in a form of drips, that is drop in a form of drops. So in drip irrigation, the wastage of water do not occur. Mostly drip irrigation is used to irrigate fruit plants, gardens and trees. Okay. So this was about the modern methods of irrigation system. Now we will discuss about weeding and crop protection. We will discuss about weeding and crop protection. What is weeding? As I have discussed, first of all we will discuss what are weeds. Okay, weeding and crop protection. Weeding, that is weeds. Weeding. Weeds. What are weeds? Weeds are unwanted or undesirable plants, or the plants which we haven't grown in our field are called weeds. And the removal of this weed, removal of weeds is called weeding. Okay, so this was weeding and this were weeds. You know why these weeds are dangerous to us, or why we have to remove this weeds from our fields? Because these weeds will absorb certain types of nutrients from our field, and our plants or our crops will be in a deficient modes, so that this, now suppose we are planting, giving nutrients to this field. Now these weeds are taking that nutrient. How come we can get a good quality of crops from that plants? So that's why weeds should be removed from our fields. So weeding is done. Okay. Now, because this weed not only compete for nutrient but air, sunlight and substance that will reduce our crop yield, and it may also harm our crops. Some types of common weeds which can be seen in our fields are grass, amaranthus, that is cholai, chenopodium, that is bhatura, wild oats, etc. These are all weeds that can be seen commonly in our fields. Now, weeds can be removed manually with the help of trowel or a harrow, or you can use weedicides like Simenzi, Metrol Archer, Butrachol, MCPA can be spread in the fields. Some organisms, some microorganisms such as virus, bacteria, fungus may cause various types of diseases. So that's why crop protection should also be used. The pest, what are pests? Small animals like you can say wild animals which attack crops are called crops, like rats, mice, these are all pests. So pests are also controlled by spraying pesticides, and some common pesticides are malathion, warfarin, DDT and BHC. Okay, so these weedicides and pesticides are used for the protection of our crops, so that we get high yielding crops from our field. Now, similarly, as fertilizers were not good, weedicides and pesticides are also not good for our human health, because with the continuous use of this weedicides and pesticides, we humans health get affected by this continuous exposure to these types of chemical, and traces of these chemicals has been traced, which has been harvested the crops and may reach to your fruit plates and may reach to your body, and you may get ill. So that's why students, you should always wash the foods very thoroughly and before consumption. Okay, you should watch foods, vegetables, everything before consumption. Okay, and now an activity is also given in your book about to protect garden plants from weed. Okay, how you can protect your garden plants from weed. So please do perform this activity at your homes if you have a home garden, or at your school's garden. Okay, now that will be all for today's class.